Marc is the author of the best-selling book, Permission to Feel, which has now been translated into over 22 languages. Most recently, with Pinterest co-founder Ben Silberman, Marc and his team created the Apple Award-winning app How to Feel that's been designed to help with emotional skills and enhance well-being. Marc is also our keynote this April at our 60th anniversary leadership conference. It was really important for us to have someone like Marc be part of that conference. I very much feel and believe that Marc's research will be increasingly important to all of us as we move into the age of AI against the political instability that is happening globally. So welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. We've got many more people registered that are joining Marc at the conference and they will listen to the recording. So we will jump right in. So what sparked your interest in this field, please, Marc? Could you tell everyone today?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. We can hear you and see you.
Great. Well, that's a big question, right? That it's because for those of you who know about my work or have read my book, you know there's a deep story there in terms of my childhood. So briefly, I'll just say that I was both unfortunately abused as a child, but also blessed as a child. And so I endured a bit of sexual abuse when I was young, between the ages of 5 and 10, by my parents' closest friend, which was awful, as you can imagine. At the same time, I was also terribly bullied in school, very insecure, just had lots of challenges. And so, I argue that I was kind of emotionally bankrupt as a child, kind of deprived of having a healthy emotional development. But at the same time, at around 11 years old, I had an uncle who was an educator who happened to be writing a curriculum to teach kids about emotions. I mean, truthfully, it is like a little bit of a fairy tale story, in terms of just going through so much trauma and then having someone who is so close to you actually be developing something that's designed to heal you. And so my uncle was living with us one summer and was using me as a little guinea pig for his program that he was building to teach kids about emotions. And and that's the beginning of my story, in terms of my journey of becoming an emotional scientist. And
Yeah.
so I'll stop there because it's, you know,
Yeah. We had a long conversation about this in the summer when I met Marc in Connecticut about how, people are so shaped by what happens to them and how different people deal with different things. So within all of that, what was the pivotal moment that shaped you into who you are today and this amazing work that you're doing at Yale, such a leading institution globally?
well, I think, after my experience with my uncle, in terms of, you know, getting what I called permission to feel, um, I, my life got better in many ways. But then I went to college and I had some identity crises and self-esteem issues happening again. You know, I'm not why I'm going here right now, but I went for therapy and just trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. And I had this epiphany because I was reading a lot of self-help books that the missing piece in education was about feeling and emotion. And so I pulled my uncle out of retirement. We wrote a curriculum together that nobody should read because that was about 30 years ago. And, he was a 68-year-old retired teacher, and I was a 24-year-old kind of know-it-all, I guess. And the two of us together was a really interesting recipe for, we just try to do it. Neither one of us, my uncle was not really a curriculum developer, and I didn't even have my master's degree yet in psychology, but yet there was passion between the two of us to figure this out. And that led me to get my PhD. I, studied with the people who founded the theory of emotional intelligence, and then my career just came out of that.
Wow. So this uncle was obviously very pivotal in your life. Was there a piece of advice that he gave you that was, you know, it was like the best piece of advice you ever had? Was it him or was it somebody else further on in your learning and your studying?
You know, I like to think of my career as like a series of like being open to feedback, you know, and I would say that, you know, I've gone back and forth in with this in terms of, you know, my uncle was like the Robin Williams character in the movie Dead Poets Society, if you've seen that. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was very out there, you know, and he wasn't that respected. You know, people thought he was a weirdo, and he wasn't, you know, he got thrown under the bus himself by his own school system for doing the work that now I get to travel the world to do. And so I have a lot of, you know, respect for his perseverance. Um, Now I forgot the question. I'm sorry, Cam. I got
What
distracted.
was that's okay. We're loving the way that this, you know, you're giving this story. You know, what was the best piece of advice
Oh,
you?
right, right,
I
right.
feel like it might have been
Yeah.
from your uncle, but then as you were
Well,
studying so much, it might have been somebody
it
else.
depends on like what, you know, where. So like early on, like my uncle had these phrases, you know, that were something like, you don't know who you are until you know how you feel. Like those were, he had these little phrases that he would just throw out there. And they were very like impactful in terms of, you know, my reflections. But my point was, what I was getting at was that my uncle was not a scientist. He was a practitioner. And then here I was getting my PhD, and I'm going to be teaching at Yale. And I bring my uncle to Yale.
Mhm.
And I see like these famous psychologists known for like founding the field of child development interacting with my uncle, and it's not going well. Right. And I'm sitting here as the observer thinking, like, okay, like they're both right.
Yeah,
Do you follow? Like, and so I really, it was very opening for me to watch the scientists be brilliant in terms of their thinking of logic models and theories of change and all this kind of stuff that obviously matters. But
yeah,
they were kind of um, unaware of the real world and the way like a classroom operates and the way kids develop in contexts. They knew it from a scientific perspective, but not from like a felt real world perspective. And so those moments really were the most eye-opening for me because I knew that I had to become expert and my career had to be both really kind of in the real world, but also, you know, in the world of science.
yeah. So having studied your framework, that's always what I feel like when I read Ruler. There's like that scientific element, but then it's really easy for us to all use as educators. There's a practical side.
No,
Um,
that's the operative question these days with implementation, yes.
Yeah. And permission to feel. Again, you know, your book, when I read it, I feel like every time I look at it, I learn something new again.
I
Um,
appreciate
you know, it's just wonderful. And I was in India in Mumbai delivering training, and I found it there published in Hindi in, you know, school that I was visiting.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Not that I can read Hindi, but I sort of recognize the
Uh-huh.
cover and then asked someone to translate, which and I was like, I know this book and I know this man.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
Um, so thinking about all the work you do, what's the biggest misconception about your field?
I think the biggest misconception
Yeah.
is that it's soft. You know, this idea of soft skills versus hard skills. I just find that distinction
Mm.
absolutely ridiculous in terms of how our brains operate, right? Emotions are what make us human,
Yeah.
right? Yes, we need cognitive abilities, but how our cognition gets expressed is directly related to the emotions and moods and feelings we're experiencing. So these are inextricably linked systems that people want to separate, which I find annoying, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I feel exactly the same. And I sort of think, are we going to continue to call them soft skills or are we going to
I
have,
hope not. That really came out of the corporate sector, you know, this idea of like the hard skills, decision making, you know, other stuff like that. And soft skills,
yeah,
emotional intelligence. But
yeah,
Truthfully, I think that that term is going away.
Yeah.
Um, at the same time, though, I think it's just interesting that in the political climate, where I am at right now, the work that we're doing is really being attacked as, um, I guess, infringing on children's and parents' rights, which is a bizarre concept
Hmm.
that people would think that kids don't feel from the moment they wake up in the morning till the time to go to bed at night, and that they don't have feelings that are influencing their performance, in every subject matter that they're learning. And so,
Yeah.
well, there's work to be done.
Yes, there's work to be done, and people like you will have to stand against the regime and let them all know how important this work is and how
We
many
can.
people it's influencing positively every day. That permission to feel is so important
Yeah.
for all of us.
And maybe when I'm in Germany, I'll share my story of working with our current president's, our current first lady, the first time around, trying to help that help her understand the value of this work.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know you'd been doing that.
That's interesting.
So interesting. Could you try again? Perhaps with more of them this time.
I don't think this round is going to work. Unfortunately.
All right, let's step away from that black hole.
Yeah,
So
let's
let's
do
talk
that.
about the exciting developments that are happening in your industry right now.
Sure.
Because I think there's lots of exciting developments, and I think people are really appreciating and really, when I go to schools, they love Ruler. I see boards full of it, and
Uh-huh.
people, when they embrace this work, they really embrace it. Uh,
Yes,
so let's talk about the exciting things that you see that are going on.
I like that direction. Um, I think, you know, especially post-pandemic,
Mhm.
there was a realization, that wow, like a lot of men, for example, were like, Mark, like, I wasn't really into this feeling stuff, but like, gosh, now I get it. And so I feel that's interesting in terms of getting more buy-in from men around emotions, because it's still this thing that emotions are feminine and cognition is masculine, which is so weird to me again. But it is a kind of a perception, or that when you have emotions, you're emotional, which is weird too. It's there's no good or bad emotion from our perspective. It's about which emotions are going to serve your goals. And so I think what's really exciting is that we're learning more. I think, well, my hope is that social and emotional learning, emotional intelligence, more and more people see its value. That's good. More and more schools are adopting it. What I'm concerned about, as much as I'm excited about, is that the implementation needs to be a strong focus. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes this is still seen as an add-on. Thursday at 2 o'clock, we're going to do this. And it's the wrong way of thinking about it. I'm hoping that people will start seeing that how we feel drives our attention, our memory, our learning. And so we need to be emotion scientists as educators from the moment kids get to school and until the end of the day. And then parents pick up on that, and then coaches pick up on that, and everybody's kind of thinking in terms of how feelings are relevant and important. And I think we're moving in that direction. There's more buy-in than ever before. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited about the science, around the measurement pieces. We're getting better and better at measuring these skills and competencies. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen lots of measurements around, that I've never seen before about performance, how emotions are impacting our performance and how, children are learning and all those things. And they are really exciting things because I think for some people, they need data. They need to be able to make
Yeah.
data-driven decisions. And the science is definitely giving us that data now. So another thing I've been thinking about, um, how is AI going to work with what you are doing? I mean, I think it just makes what you're doing even more important as we move into this phase of AI being able to do certain things for us.
Yeah, I mean, I believe AI can be both helpful and unhelpful, just like anything.
Yeah.
And where I think it's helpful, is that we could for example, upload videos and scripts of teachers doing this work in thousands of classrooms, and then have AI make meaning out of it and provide feedback and say, here are the top themes, here's the way, here's what the best quality implementation might look like. And, those are great. I mean, I find that just to be remarkable how powerful that can be to help analyze data and make inferences. Where I
Yeah.
think you can go wrong is when we, I get this word, it's a hard word to say, when we anthropomorphize AI. And I gave a speech on this recently. In my app, the app that I co-created, the How We Feel app, we have now millions of people using it, and we've built an AI function, a reflection tool. But for me, um, what I'm most afraid of is that we're pulling humanity out of being human. And, just to be blunt, you know, intimacy is a big deal in life, and whether it's romantic intimacy or friendship intimacy. And technology is pulling us further and further away from connecting, eye to eye, face to face. And so that's what I worry about the most, is that we're going to be, we're getting more and more glued to technology. We're getting more and more impatient with how long it takes for a relationship to grow, and the complexities of a relationship, and that we're just going to, you know, move to technology to solve all these things, but it doesn't solve them. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's um,
I mean, my best hope is that we will value this connection, this being with each other far more, and sort of think there's a place for AI. But really, this is what we really need as humans.
I hope,
Yeah.
but our addictive nature, we have to really monitor that.
Yeah.
The immediate gratification, the quick fix. The same
Mm.
thing with kind of psychology, like in the self-help world. I've become like I want to become, I have to use my words carefully this morning. Um, I'm becoming increasingly frustrated with influencers, like having all the answers for people. The extrovert narcissist is telling me how to deal with my feelings in 10 seconds, and that just feels ridiculous, and that, and all the point is that that's what's out there. And so algorithms will be picking up on a certain type of person's way of supporting us, and it can be biased, and we want to be mindful of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to hand over to this lovely
Sure.
audience to ask you questions for a few minutes
Delightful.
before we round up. Hello, Francesca. I can see you've got your hand up. Would you like to go first?
Yes. First, I'd just like to say, Mark, I'm so happy to see you. I'm not sure if you remember, but well, you probably remember presenting at the Mindful Leadership Institute in DC in
Yeah, of course.
2017. And that's where I first met you, and I've been a
Cool.
fan of your work ever since.
Thank you.
So I'm a high school principal, and I'm constantly thinking about how to support kids emotionally. And I'll just kind of add a comment and a question. I've also been a user of the mood meter and the How You Feel app. And just like you are describing, recently when the AI feature like appeared, and when the mood meter asked, or like when it asked me if I want to stay or shift my emotion, or do I want to journal about that, I just like did this deep dive journaling with my app about how I'm feeling. And my husband came into my office and was like, or you could just talk to me, like a partner. And so like I think about the students at the International School of Panama where I am, and like I want them to have access to like learning about their emotions and the fluidity around that. And yet I'm also just so worried about how much time they spend on their phones. And so for me, I'm trying to like talk with kids about the balance between being so deep in their phones and having the human interactions. And so I'm like, all right, maybe this is a tool for them to get more words and language that they can use when they interact with their classmates or teachers, who start a class with a warm welcome, like, hey, how's everyone feeling? And kids are just like, I don't I don't know. And so I just want to share that I as a
Yeah.
practitioner out there working with adolescents, I and myself understanding your app and all its the power of it. I am also just really struggling thinking about how much technology our kids are using and how it's holding them back or helping them to launch to speak more about their emotional state. And I'm just wondering if you can share any insights that you've had with high schoolers in particular around Ruler, because I know it's often used with elementary kids, but we love it in high schools too.
No, well, we have a whole ruler high school training, just so you know, that's separate.
Yeah.
So you know about that. And my husband is from Panama. So
Oh.
vamos a Panama para hacer entrenamiento. But so a couple things. One is that the feedback we get from high schoolers is extraordinarily positive about the app. That it's a place where they feel safe, they can go to, they can journal about their feelings, they can analyze their data, they can get meaning out of it. As a matter of fact, I just got this amazing testimonial from a high school boy in Texas, sharing how it just transformed his relationships. Um, Now, there's another feature of the app that you should know about, which is the share feature. And so you can actually create groups where you can communicate your feelings to other people, which brings in that social piece. And people have found it to be very useful. So, for example, in one other school, there was a boy who sadly his brother had passed from leukemia, and then 2 weeks later his dog died, and he was in a really dark place. And he created a small group with the app. And when he would plot himself, for example, in the blue quadrant, feeling down or disappointed, it would alert his friends, and they could all then come to him and provide social support. So people have really liked that, and the students really benefit from it because it's both anonymous, but also you can choose to be social. Um, I would say that given how limited people's vocabularies are, the goal to be on the app, it should take less than a minute or two per check-in. And so we're not asking people, it's not a social media app where you get lost in the app. And that's a big difference. So I've only seen positive things come out of it for high schoolers, actually. Um, Hope that helps.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Hello, Eleni. How are you? Do you have a question for Mark?
Hello, thank you, Kam. Thank you, Mark, today for your presence and your useful tips. Yes, my question regards building trust with students as teachers and professionals. And of course, you are mentioning your fantastic work with how we can become emotion scientists. So here's my question, knowing that trust is based on providing a vault of confidentiality to the other part, being reliable, being professional, of course, in this, since we work with minors, and to be also accountable, to be able to be held accountable for what we do. So in this context, what are three things or two things or three things or more things that teachers can do and professionals who work with minors in order to build trust while becoming emotion scientists?
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to save some of this for my talk. I hope you're coming to the presentation because I have a whole big research study. And I've talked to Cam about this, where we're going to do the research with all the people who are coming to the conference. So I'll be presenting the concepts that all of you think about, and we'll talk about how cross-cultural or not those findings are. Hint is I have not found cultural differences, which is interesting in the world of emotion science. There's a great amount of agreement about these things cross-culturally. But what I'll say is that one of the things that's, I think, unique about the way we approach social and emotional learning, especially, the area of like, what do I do with my feelings, is that there's no correct answer. And that is hard for a lot of teachers because we're programmed as educators for correctness. Like there's a correct math problem, there's a correct answer to the math, there's a correct science, there's a way to write sentences with semicolons and commas and da da da. But when it comes to feelings, A, my feelings are my feelings. B, based on my life, my personality, my culture, my upbringing, where I am in my life, what context I'm in, what I might do to regulate or deal with my feelings is very different than what you might do. And so I think what's beautiful about the work when done well is that the teacher is facilitating a reflection. The teacher is facilitating critical thinking for the child to develop their own pathway. And that's just like magic to me, because we get, unfortunately, what I find with research and with discussion with parents and teachers is that we go into fixer mode.
Mhm.
You know, like, oh, you're sad? Go take a walk. Go do your breathing exercises. Go drink a cold glass of water. Go journal. And why? Like, why am I doing that right now? That didn't come from me. It's not what I might need right now. But I have to be taught the range of ideas, and then I have to be guided on a pathway to try different things out, and and then evaluate how those things have helped me or not to achieve my goals. And I find that that's harder in general for people to do, because um, it's like, where am I going with this? And I can't predict what's going to happen. And people don't like that fuzzy space. But that's fuzzy space is where all the growth happens,
Yeah.
and where all the autonomy actually comes out of, and where all of you know, the resilience comes out of. So getting back to the trust piece, it's about creating the conditions where kids feel like they can be their true selves, where they're not going to be judged, and they can try things without feeling ridiculed for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. And I really liked what you touched on. It's that little magic that we're looking for. If we could get that magic, then everybody would feel better about whatever is going on. So thank you for that. This is a short conversation, so I'm going to bring Mark back for a couple of questions, and then obviously you'll all get to enjoy his company at the leadership conference.
Looking forward to it.
So Mark, what's one thing that you can't live without?
Coffee.
So I don't know if you all listen to Radio 4 Desert Island Discs. This is a really important question. So it's coffee, is it? Super.
Coffee is like my, and yeah, it's like a whole thing for me. It's like my morning. It's like some people do meditation. I kind of like have a relationship with my cappuccino.
Right. Same question to our audience. If you could put in the chat box what you can't live without and which country you're from, because I think it'd be really nice for Mark to see that we have people here from Bangkok, from Panama, all over the world. Somebody's in a stationery cupboard. I don't know what country you're in, Jamie, but it looks like you're sitting either in front of some shelves or in a stationery cupboard. So one final question I've got for you, Mark.
Okay.
Other than your work, Permission to Feel, can you provide this audience with a book or a podcast recommendation?
You know, there's so many great authors. In relation to my field, I'm appreciative of the work of a scientist. Her name is Lisa Feldman Barrett. She's a neuroscientist and an emotion scientist, and she wrote a very short little book that I think is really helpful. It's called 7.5 Lessons About the Brain, and it's written for a wide audience. And I find it a good reminder that we're not born that way. Lady Gaga got it all wrong. Just kidding. But that we, you know, our brains are so adaptable, and that we can change and unlearn things and grow. And I just find that very hopeful.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for joining this wonderful ECIS audience today. And we're really excited to see you. I think we're about 8 weeks out now from the conference in Stuttgart.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm very much excited for this. This is going to be fun.
And we're so grateful for the work that you do. I don't think you realize how many people's lives you touch and how helpful your work is to many, many schools. So
Thank you.
thank you all, my lovely friends, for joining us. Over to you, Mark, for the last few words.
Oh no, I just want to say thank you, Cam, for inviting me, and I'm so looking forward to just getting out of the United States and getting over to Stuttgart, if I said it right.
Yes.
And I'm hopeful that we can all join some have some good meals and rich conversations and talk about how together we can make the world a better place for more children.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mark.